The Valley of the Fallen was created between 1940 and 1958 as a memorial site to remember those on both sides who were killed during the Spanish Civil War. This site is in Sierra de Guadarrama, Spain, and is approximately 3,360 acres in size. Franco created this site as a memorial and a place of remembrance and atonement for both sides involved in the war. It is where Franco was eventually laid to rest within the basilica. This site brings much controversy alongside it because of how it is associated with Franco's communist regime.
April 26, 1937 was Market Day in Guernica, a small town in the Basque region of Spain. Planes regularly buzzed over the town as civil war had engulfed the country, but around 4 p.m. that day, these planes dropped the first of many bombs that would ravage the town for nearly 3 hours. Often referred to as the first experiment in total war, this attack left fire spreading for several days and destroyed the entire town, except for the only strategic locations nearby, the arms building and the bridge into town. Exactly how many people perished as a result of the attack, as well as who was really responsible, has been widely debated. However, in the Peace Museum housed in Guernica, healing and understanding has taken root. Since 1988, the museum has served as a place of remembrance to the attack, where visitors can learn about the event through artifacts, newspaper clippings, and a room that simulates living through the attack, complete with flickering lights and sounds of explosions. The museum also functions as an education center advocating for peace. A visitor can walk through the exhibit where they're asked what peace is and what it means to them personally. Through this introspective lens, visitors can also look through information about modern terrorist groups in Spain and abroad in a way that reminds us that fear, death, and war are not a thing of the past. This museum stands in contrast to the acknowledgement of the bombing on a national level. Spain has done little to remember those who died as casualties of Franco's victories, especially those civilians who were killed in Guernica that day in 1937. Spain has yet to take responsibility for their actions, but some strides have been taken on a global scale to reconcile with Guernica. Germany formally confessed their responsibility in the attack in 1997 with a letter from President Herzog sent to the survivors. Through the work of this small museum, histories were being remembered, and advocacy for peace is growing, so that the next generations will not let Spain or the world forget what happened to a small village on Market Day.
The Bavarian State Chancellery was built in 1989 to 1993. In the same site as the dome from the Bavarian Army Museum, which was bombed during World War II, this building holds the offices of the Chancellery staff. It was built using a large amount of glass to show the people of Germany the transparency of the government and the government's responsibility to its people in light of World War II. It holds as a place of acknowledgement of the past, as well as a promise from the government for Germany's future.
The Nuremberg trials took place in Nuremberg, Germany, after the end of World War II. The purpose of the trials was to prosecute 24 important members of the Nazi Party who had been accused of crimes against humanity. Judges from each of the Allied countries ran the trials, with 12 of the accused found guilty and eventually executed. The Allies chose the city of Nuremberg to host the trials because of their significance to the party. Hitler had chosen Nuremberg to be the new Nazi capital, and the party rally grounds were nearby. The trials are especially significant because they set a standard for similar trials to be hosted by the UN in the future. It was one of the first times in history that an international trial had been held, and where people were convicted of humanity crimes. After the Nuremberg trials, an international criminal court was established.
One of the more complicated aspects of remembering a tragedy is deciding how to punish the perpetrators. The conflict with how guilty an individual or business was for the crimes of the Holocaust has been at the forefront of Germany and the world's conscience for generations. This is why the Nuremberg trials were so important to the healing of all those affected. Some form of justice was needed to atone for the unthinkable crimes committed. Appropriately enough, one of the most famous portions of the Nazi war crime trials, the Nuremberg trials, took place in the Palace of Justice, a building that was chosen because it was mostly intact after the war and fit space requirements. However, the symbolic function of using Nuremberg to try Nazis was not lost. The city was used as a rally and parade location for the Nationalist Socialist Party, as Hitler rose to power. This Bavarian city embodies the complicated Nazi past of Germany as it came full circle with its World War II involvement. First as a site of Nazi pride, and finally as a place for Nazi punishment with the trials. The physical building that housed the trial still functions as a working courthouse today. Visitors must time their tours around government events and appearances. It is obvious which capacity dominates the use of the building. There is one photograph of what the courtroom looked like during the trial, next to one showing the modern appearance outside the room. This is the bulk of the indoor acknowledgement of what took place here. However, to the credit of the German effort to remember their actions, there is a small museum on the top floor of the building that covers a short history of the Nazi Party and the war before diving into the history of the trials and all those that were involved. There are not many authentic artifacts to learn from, but the information is thorough and provokes more thought of how effective the trials were at resolving the transgressions of those involved in the Holocaust. By using the site as an educational memorial, while also using it to conduct everyday government business, represents the way in which Germany is trying to move forward without forgetting. Nazi ties are too heavily embedded in German businesses and history to throw out anything connected to this dark period in time. But being aware of it and using it to be more educated about our choices is important in making steps to appropriately memorialize all that were lost.
The Nazi parade grounds, located in Nuremberg, Germany, were the site of 6 Nazi Party rallies. The rallies were meant to boost German spirit and demonstrate the party's strength. Congress Hall, pictured, is the largest landmark building. Designed by architects Ludwig and Franz Ruff, it was modeled after the Roman Colosseum. However, Congress Hall was designed in the simplistic Nazi style, with strong, simple lines and harsh angles, contrary to the decorative Roman style. The hall was intended to house the Nazi Congress and was supposed to hold over 50,000 party members. Construction was halted in 1939, and the building was never completed. The parade grounds are considered a German landmark. However, there is controversy over the site because of its origin. Some argue against preserving and memorializing the place that was the heart of the Nazi Party.
The EUR district in Rome, Italy, was constructed in 1930 by Mussolini and was originally meant to be the site of the World's Fair in 1942. It was meant to be a place to celebrate the 20th anniversary of fascism in Rome, which would have been in 1942. This never happened due to World War II. The district was also meant to be the new city center of Rome and a symbol of its expansion. The district was still being created when it had to be put on pause because of the war. In this time, there were many half-built buildings that stood that way for years. In the 1950s and 60s, it was decided that the district would be finished and used as a business district outside of the city of Rome. Even so, many buildings in the district, such as the Coliseo Quadrado, are still reminders of fascist architecture as well as fascism's presence in Rome.
The Colosseum is one of the most iconic buildings of Rome and has stood the test of time for nearly 2,000 years. Completed in 80 AD, the structure is inherently linked to the glory and power of the Roman Empire. With this in mind, it is not surprising that the fascist leader of Italy, Benito Mussolini, did what he could to connect himself with the Colosseum, and therefore its great prestige. He utilized the space to hold mass rallies to exalt his party and to celebrate the anniversary of his march on Rome. However, Mussolini did benefit the structure and other ancient sites like it when he began his restoration excavation project in the 1930s. A landmark of Rome, the Colosseum is riddled with remnants of past rulers and events that have shaped the city. Therefore, it is fitting that Mussolini would have left his mark on it as well. An atheist in his views, Mussolini saw the need to make the church his ally. One way to do so was by placing a simple cross inside the Colosseum in 1926 as a gesture of good faith. It still stands today without much note near the cross of who placed it there or why. Although housed on the highest floors visitors can explore in the Colosseum is a small museum of the history of the Colosseum. Within the exhibit is a section discussing the cross and its connection to the fascist leader. Finding information about the cross online is extremely difficult, and without a knowledgeable tour guide or the time to read through the museum, it would be easy to pass by the cross as a symbol of God placed there by the Pope with no mention of Mussolini. That it remains standing is a testament to what is most important in the Eternal City: religion. Mussolini may have been a fascist leader who aligned himself with Hitler, but Rome has seen many terrible leaders over thousands of years and has the unique perspective of being able to keep its cross and still remember its fascist past.